Hi, and welcome to the Bassmaster Studio, sponsored by Marathon. Tommy Sanders and Ronnie Moore here with you. Ronnie, it's our yearly ritual, the big reveal, the Elite season for 2024.
Yeah, we just got done with 2023 Bassmaster Elite Series season, and what do we do with our 6 months off before the start of the season? We dwell and wait until we announce the schedule, and here it is, our 9 events, plus the Classic, which we've already announced for the 2024 Bassmaster season.
Yeah, it's always big fun. We got a star-studded lineup, as we always have. Let's start it out because we're starting differently. We're not starting in Florida this time around.
Yeah, for the first time in a little while, we're not starting in the state of Florida. We're actually going right there on the Louisiana-Texas border at Toledo Bend, a famous place in history. It was a place that was once a #1 ranking Bassmaster, top lakes in the country mark for years. And then it's had a little bit of a downturn, but boy, 2023 in the opens, it showed us that Toledo Bend is back. We saw a bunch of 10-pounders in January caught in local tournaments, and then on pace for the Century Club mark for 3 days through the opens, which was mid-April. This will be late February, though.
Yeah, the big word is the hydrilla is back, and that makes a big, big difference at Toledo Bend. We should see a lot of different approaches to catching them there, too, especially early on this year.
Yeah, the last time we were here for an Elite Series event, it was around the April time period. There was a shad spawn going on. You could still fish a little bit deep. That kind of resembles what we just saw in the Open in 2023. This being late February, it's right in between that April time period I'm talking about and the college events that we normally have there in mid to late January. And that's the deal, is these fish, it's not going to be straight winter. These fish are going to start to be more pre-spawn. Hey, Tommy, for the first time in a long time, we will have a pre-spawn Bassmaster Elite Series event to start the year. Nothing around the spawn. Unless we've had an abnormally warm winter, which I don't think we will, Toledo Bend will show us a little bit different than we've seen in the past.
So much of the history of tournament bass fishing has been written on this place since it was impounded back in the late 60s and exploded after then, and it's great to hear that it's back, and it's great that we're going there. We're going to stay in Texas for our second event as well, kind of another well-known fishery.
Yeah, and a place that we have been multiple times, but let's just say this, Tommy, in the 3 or 4 times we've been there in the past, we've never been there at the exact same time. We've been there in April at Lake Fork, I believe, when Brandon Cobb won. We were there in May when Lee Livesey won. We were there around that time period, June, May, when Lee Livesey won again, and then in the fall, November, when Patrick Walters won. So doing it last week of February, first few days of March, Lake Fork, we could see, like we say always, Century Club with the first 2 lakes. It's a possibility because those pre-spawn fish that come out of Texas and Louisiana, they are big, they're ready to go, and once they make that push, once they get grouped up in an area, it could really be a fun Lake Fork. Hopefully it fishes a little bigger too, even though the water might be low in that winter time period. If it is normal water level, we could see people, in the mid portions of the pockets and on the main lake.
Yeah, we were there 4 times in a row from 2018 to 21, and the winner, at least in all of those, was a Century mark. You can pretty much book a Century mark assault this time as well.
For sure, and I wonder how much local history and knowledge somebody like Lee Livesey is going to be able to have in February. The more we go to a place, the more these Elite Series anglers catch on, and the more they know about it. But like we said, different time of the year. We normally see these fish and they're sweating by the time we get there because it's so hot in Texas. It'll be much colder. We'll see some hoodies on in this tournament.
Oh, it will be a great, great event. Then, of course, we've got the Academy Sports and Outdoors Bassmaster Classic. For the 3rd time, it will be held at a classic place, Grand Lake, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier in the year, it's been a little while, though. 2013, we had one frigid Classic.
Yeah,
2016,
big winter storm.
A little bit warmer, but still pretty cold. This time around, late March, it should be a barn burner at Grand Lake. That is the time in the Ozarks where you could get a crankbait bite going. That is also a time in Oklahoma where you can go up and fish in the dirt if you want to and power fish. It would be great to see a power fishing tournament, but we also know there are plenty of suspended fish. We will see if there's any fish off the bank that will be caught in this Classic.
Just under 50,000 acres, a very, very different place. Grass is not a big deal here. It's the Neosho River coming from the north, the Elk River coming from the east, and it's just a great, great system and a great place to contest a Classic. The two we've had have been terrific.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Neosho and then Wolf Creek, those 2 areas, which is the takeoff and north, much, much shallower water than you see once you get down towards the dam and obviously lower parts of the lake. That's where we get some depth. It's where you get those bluffs, those drops, those really deeper pockets, but everything flat and shallow. Just below takeoff and north, that's what you'll get. Down below, you'll get a little bit steeper, maybe a little bit more pre-spawn winter fish if they're not already making their way to the banks.
Be the big show as usual, BOK Arena, the convention center. It's going to be a great, great time in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Book your plans now.
100%.
You don't want to miss it. Absolutely. And then Then we get our promised trip to Florida, and a place that everybody loves going, but we only have gone early, way earlier to the Harris Chain. This will be a different Harris Chain, but it'll still be that great place with all those different sorts of situations you can fish.
There's two things when we start in Florida. The one great thing is everywhere else in the world is very cold and it's frustrating to fish sometimes. But also when you get to Florida early in the year, like a February or a late January, something like that, the cold fronts actually do hit Florida and they tremendously affect those weights and those fish. We saw the Harris Chain influx last time when we kicked off our year at the St. John's and then the Harris Chain.
Right, yeah.
Those fish were wanting to be on bed. There were some big ones on bed, but they weren't quite there. The winning weight just under 80 pounds, a little bit lower than our expectations. But April, Tommy, I'm excited to go to Florida in April. I don't know since I've been alive and the Elite Series has been formed, if we've been in Florida in April, it'll open up a lot of different things. You'll still see
How's it
fish
going to
on
be
the bed.
different from when we would go in late January, early February?
Well, the deal is that these fish oftentimes start spawning, you know, at some places in Florida around Thanksgiving. Maybe this is a little farther north than like a Lake Okeechobee. So maybe in Christmas time, January, they start spawning, and it's so infrequent that they'll go all the way through May. So we'll see spawning fish in Florida all the way through May and beyond. So when we get to April, you'll still see some of those spawning fish. You'll see some offshore fish develop. Maybe the grass is a little bit hardier, a little bit stronger, a little bit grown up in some places. And then obviously you'll have the people who want to just do what they do in Florida, find that grass, get on those lines, power fish. We'll obviously see some of those guys doing all the lakes as well. So many places. You've got Griffin you can go to. We saw Apopka was popular last time. Little Harris and Harris. Harris was where it was won. And then you've got obviously Eustis, Dora, Beauclair, Carrollton, all those.
You've got
Carlton,
all the connecting canals,
yeah,
little backwater
exactly.
ponds, big lakes, and it's just a great variety. It's always entertaining to go
For
there
sure.
and watch. And this time, 2 months later than we were there last time.
I think it really will spread the field out. We always will see an area where a lot of people are, but we should see a little bit more spread out. There should be some people in every lake represented, hopefully on the final day.
Another stop in Florida. Right after that, the famous St. Johns River, the premier river in Florida, 310 miles going south to north at our host city, Palatka. It turns into just a big wide estuary, basically. It changes character. So you can choose that, or you can choose all the lakes downstream and the open river as well, George, Woodruff, Dexter, and all those lakes down there. Lots of historic places.
Yes, and one thing we see, Tommy, there's two things. You're either going to go way back in a canal or a dead-end canal and fish for those residential fish or those fish that have pulled up to spawn, or we've seen in the past, you just stay on the main river. Look for some shell bars, look for some places like that. If you're over in Rodman, if that's available in play, then you maybe fish a little bit deeper off those drops, off the standing timber, things like that. But in April, I think we're going to have a wide variety of things available to these anglers. You're not going to just see the dead-end canal fishing or the shell bar fishing out on the main drag. You're going to be able to see a mixture of things. You'll see some of the swampy areas play. You'll see some of those lakes down below play. You'll probably see crescent play a little bit. But being able to not be in a jacket, let's just say, I don't want to curse it in April, but not necessarily in your winter coats at the St. Johns River, it's going to open up a lot of things. We'll probably see topwater fish other than those slow-moving topwaters. We'll probably actually see good topwater fishing at the St. Johns River, which I'm super excited
Fingers
about.
crossed, no fog delays. It'll be warmer.
Yes.
We got a better
Yeah,
outlook there as well, so it'll
100%.
be a lot of fun. I think this is the 24th time that the Bassmasters have been to the St. Johns River. Very much looking forward to it. It would be the 4th year in a row for us.
Yeah, one of the places that I guess is dubbed as Bassmaster HQ South because we're always at the St. Johns River. But like we said, different time of the year. I'm excited, just like Toledo Bend. Toledo Bend went down a little bit, coming back up. Hopefully we could be a part of the conservation aspect and the rise of the St. Johns River once again.
All right, well, that takes us almost to the halfway point of the season. We go up to South Carolina. Wow, we hadn't been to Lake Murray for 11 years previous to our visit in 23, and it was gangbusters. It was terrific.
We were so blown away. We wanted to do it again. This time a little bit different. Like you said, we came out of the Classic and fished in South Carolina in April. This is going to be early portions of May, the first 10 or so days of May. Excited to see how Murray fishes there. You won't necessarily have a bunch of sight fish on bed. We saw that was how it was won by Drew Benton in 2023. We saw that start to fade for some anglers each day, though. They were worried that those the waves of spawners weren't going to be there. I got a feeling with it being May, a little bit more summer vibes, even though it's not to the full extent of heat yet. You'll be able to see that herring spawn probably going on. Maybe
Further down the lake,
remnants of
maybe
a
for the
shad.
herring?
Yeah, I think that you'll do that. And then I think that those rivers will actually factor a little bit more. But those fish feeding on the herring, those main lake ones from, I guess, Dreher Island down towards the dam, they've gotten so big, Tommy. We blew it out of the water in 2023. I'm excited for 2024.
Yeah, it was only the second time we had been there since 2011, or this will be the second time since 2011. So glad we got it back in the rotation. I think everybody's a big fan of that. Now, another place we haven't been to in a while, I think 2016, was Wheeler Lake, or 2017 at Wheeler Lake in Alabama.
No, you were right the first time. 2016, we saw Takahiro pull out a big swim bait on the Decatur Flats. I mean, if there's a nostalgia factor of it, it's a discontinued swim bait with an old school angler on a place that is so famous at Wheeler Lake.
Iconic place, the giant ledge, giant flat there.
What we do forget in that tournament, though, is Dave Lefebvre and some other guys were catching them really good flipping bushes. So the opportunity there, it presents itself that you don't just have to be on the Decatur Flats to maybe win this event. Maybe some smallmouth factor in. Early ledge fishing, no doubt. It should be prime. Those schools should be getting big there. I think that, honestly, we saw a good mixture of high weights and then a little bit of consistency for the Wheeler Lake Open in 2023. We got to see the EQ anglers fishing there. Excited to go back to Wheeler, showcase it on Bassmaster Live with the 100 best anglers in the world.
Sometimes Wheeler doesn't get enough publicity because it's in between Guntersville and Pickwick, and that and Wilson and Wheeler. But good lakes, good solid place to have a tournament. Looking forward to that.
With how many people fish in this part of the country, this is a place that you can't avoid. If you're an Alabama angler and you're fishing local, you can't avoid Wheeler. You're gonna have to fish there. I'm excited to see, Elk River, other things playing as well. Wheeler, it's one of those places. We've been there quite a bit compared to other places for the Elite Series. I think we've been there 4 times previously. This is the 5th time we've been there for the Elite Series. And like you said, June time period should be a good one for sure.
Absolutely. We stay in Alabama for the next event. You talk about a lake that we haven't been. We've never been there with the elites, believe it or not. Yet Smith Lake is one of the favorites of so many anglers that fish the Elite Series.
Yeah, this is going to be, we get our blueback herring taste in May with Lake Murray. We get it once again here at Smith Lake. Vastly different though. There are big largemouth up in the creeks, but a lot of spotted bass. We're going to see the Clearwater offshore fishing really come into play at Smith Lake. I'm excited to see what June has to hold. June may be a tough period of time in respect. We can't have 9 events in April where the fishing's great everywhere. You're going to have to go different places. And so for Smith, you can catch them. There's going to be anglers catching them over 100 feet of water probably, Tommy. And then you'll also have people competing with the same exact weights up in 5 inches of water in the backs of creeks. We're going to see some, and the opportunity to really get away from people. I look at this map, pick where you want to go. You're probably going to find a creek to yourself for sure.
Haven't been there since an Elite 50 event back in 2005. Before that, a tour event in 2004. So we are going to re-update Smith Lake for everyone.
And this is another place that we normally come, with the Opens or College Series around that February time period, maybe March, right after a Classic, that region of time. Being June, different look than we've seen. Maybe same banks, but it's going to look a lot different the way they catch them and win this tournament.
Yeah, a big spotted bass tournament. Always look forward to that.
Excited.
Now, then we've got our Northern Swing. It was 3 events this past year in 2023. We have 2 this time, but they're the 2 biggies. It's Lake Champlain to start.
Yes, we're going to have about a month off or a month and a half off from the Smith Lake and the Alabama Swing over with Wheeler and Smith before we head up to New York to finish out our swing. Lake Champlain, Plattsburgh, New York. We got to see the highest winning weight we have seen at Lake Champlain ever. And it absolutely put out some of the biggest fish we've seen. These smallmouth are getting so big. We talked about it. Do you do largemouth? Do you do smallmouth? This was the year with the water being high. Largemouth could factor. No, they couldn't. Nope. It was all smallmouth dominated. We saw these anglers really open our eyes to not only technology, but that these pelagic smallmouth are actively chasing over 50 to 100 feet of water, at times over 40, 50 feet of water, and they are suspended just right underneath your trolling motor, like just very, very shallow in the water column, but over deep water. We got to see them really be the carnivores that they are and chase around all those alewife and stuff.
Opened a whole new population. Do you see anything changing for the time of year we're going to be there this time?
I really don't. I think that the inland sea is always going to be a factor at Lake Champlain. I think we could see a little bit of New York play, a little bit more. You got to kind of diversify yourself a little bit. There's always a place, like we saw at Lake St. Clair, like we saw at Champlain, where the biomass is, like Mark Zona likes to call it, where all of the bait fish, all of the life, all of the bass are going to be honed in on. It happened to be in that island region of the inland sea. It could be in a different place this time around, but the Inland Sea will always house one or two at least in the top 10.
We always pitch it as being you can do everything from pitch a frog out in the grass to drop shots. It was half true this time around.
Yes, we saw it. If you were catching them on a frog up in the grass, you probably didn't make the cut, except for I think Scott Canterbury went and had fun one day after he made the cut. I think that we hopefully could see some largemouth come into play, maybe those big ones come into play, but one thing we need to watch out for, every time you come to Lake Champlain, you better have an area close to the ramp that's protected, because when it gets rough, we could either have a postponed day like we did this last time, or lose a day altogether. You want to make sure, at least if we go in rough conditions and you don't want to go 40, 50 miles, you better have something close on the New York side that you can feel confident in.
All right, the grand finale, the big wrap-up is going to be, of course, at the St. Lawrence River, Lake Ontario. What a fantastic tournament we have had there. Oh, I guess the last 10 times we've been there.
Yes.
Just unbelievable, and it gets better every time.
Wash, rinse, repeat. But the one thing that's different this time, Tommy, and I'll point to it down here, Waddington, New York. Something that's different, but it remains the same. Waddington was the place that opened our eyes to the love of the St. Lawrence River way back in 2013 when the Elites first came here. We got to see Brandon Pollock make a long run, win the event, do something different that no one else thought they'd do. Now, Tommy, I'm not sure with what at this point in time what the playing field will be, if Lake Ontario is fully in play or not, or if it's just river-based. If the lake's in play, we talked about it off camera. Normally maybe 10, 12 people would go all the way from Waddington if the lake's open. I'd expect half our field to probably try to make that run.
Absolutely.
But if it is river exclusive, we saw a great winning weight, 70 plus pounds. This year in the Opens, it was about a month earlier than what it'll be here, but it was river exclusive, over 70 pounds for 3 days of fishing. If it is river exclusive, I'd expect them to still catch them. We'll still see some of those places. Ogdensburg, you'll see north of Takeoff, the area close adjacent to Waddington. You'll see all of those places all the way down to Cape Vincent. We know people in the mouth of the lake. If you can't go to the lake, get as close as you can to it, and you're probably going to be successful.
Best rule of thumb you could possibly have there. Of course, now if the lake is in play, just think about what we've seen. The last in 2022, we were there. Two anglers over 100 pounds, first time ever for full smallmouth, 20 smallmouth. In Bassmaster history, this time around, the top 4. That's the way this place has progressed. It's like redoubles itself every year.
It's exploding, and if Kyle Welcher didn't have mechanical issues on the final day and lose half of his fishing day, he was 4 ounces from adding a 5th century belt in 2023 at the St. Lawrence River in Lake Ontario. If they do make that run, though, Tommy, I will say, if you're out of Clayton and you run to the lake, that's a short drive. You got a lot more fishing time than you would have normally. You can put you can have a slow portion of your day and still catch a big bag. If you're coming from Waddington, you have to be on point. You have to make that run perfect. You have to get out there and capitalize quick, because you're not going to have a lot of time to run, especially, let's just say if the river's calm, you get to the mouth and it's really gusting out on the lake, it's going to be troublesome for some guys who have put all their marbles in that basket. If it is river exclusive, or if for the guys who stay in the river, they could probably compete with the lake guys if the lake guys only have, 2 or 3 hours to be able to get it done.
We'd love to see them all strategizing, heavily trying to win a tournament.
Hey, we can see those shallow guys, the Kennedys, the Lowens, the Fighters, those guys who have made their work shallow. This is a solid time that it could still be done. And if they're up in the river, they can probably make it happen.
All right, 9 events on the Bassmaster Elite Series for 2024. Each of these venues has its own separate character. We look so much forward to that, and our Academy Sports and Outdoors Classic as well. That's the lineup for 2024.